Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another motivational, inspirational interview. We're actually brilliant tonight because we've got the pleasure of Mr. David Lewis. David, I know obviously from West Brom Powerchair football, also from Queen Alexandra College, because obviously you're part of the course for that. So it's a pleasure to have you on. And as I said,
Thank you.
It's a momentous day because it's the end of shielding. So tomorrow it's back in work.
Thank you for having me, Andy. Yeah, it's just like a dollop of snow. It's all going to have gone away by the time we wake up in the morning.
Well, as you said, it is April Fool's Day tomorrow, so we'll see what happens.
It is April Fool's. Yeah.
Let's
not get caught out by that.
Owen, over to you. So, Owen, you introduce yourself.
Nice to meet you, Owen.
Nice to meet you, Dave, as well. I'm Owen Lamprey, lead practitioner for health and wellbeing at Clifton Primary, which is a very large primary school in the middle of Birmingham, and also with a good and great interest in SEND sport, both at school and in my own personal and private life as well.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
So,
thank you for having me on anyway.
No, David, it's a pleasure. So, David Lewis, I mean, where did it all begin for Mr. Lewis, you guys, to Powerchair football, the story as it is? You start from the very beginning.
Okay, then, yeah. I should take it back 13 years because I'm now 38, believe it or not. So I take it back to when I was 25, and I was actually sitting at a Birmingham City match. You please mustn't all boo at once. And then half time, I had a tap on my shoulder from Mr. Paul Hunt, who I've known for many years, and you know well too, Andy, from the QAC and the Albion. I've known Paul many years, 20 or 25 years, but our relationship purely extended to away from one end of the stadium to another, and that was it. But then one day he come down and see me and actually spoke to me, and he started to talk all about Powerchair football. Now, I hadn't got a clue what he was on about, and to be fair, I probably still don't. But he was on about this sport, and I'd never heard of it, Andy. I'd never heard of it, but I was really intrigued. So he invited me along to a training session. This was on the Saturday. I went on the Tuesday night, and to be honest with you, I was instantly hooked. And I think I was in the team the following weekend because I could control the ball and the chair together. So yeah, it happened very quickly. But from that day on, I was hooked. And I say that was 13 years ago now, and I'm still playing. And I'm also a coach now of the sport. And as you know, I shall come on to have gone on to represent my country and then complete a couple of coaching badges as well. I'm a FA level 2 qualified coach within football, not specifically disability sports. So nowadays I'm a player and coaching. Fast forward 13 years.
Fantastic, David. I mean, going back to the very beginning, and thinking about who inspired and motivated you to play Powerchair football, but you're also an advocate for disability inclusion. But what really inspired you? What really motivates you?
I think, as time goes on, because when I was 25, what I should have said is I never played any sport whatsoever because of my disability. The height of my sporting ambition was like a game of table tennis because I couldn't really run about. I couldn't play cricket, lift a cricket bat, couldn't throw the ball. So I really was limited. So when Paul, gave me the opportunity to play sport in my electric wheelchair, which is what I've been in for so many years, I thought, well, yeah, I didn't even know that was possible, to be honest with you. So, I have to say maybe Paul in a way because he got me started. But I've always been a sports fanatic. I absolutely love sport. I've been going to football matches since I was, 7-8 years of age. So I really love my sport. So to have the chance to be part of a team was absolutely fantastic. And I couldn't foresee then where it would take me 13 years later. Because I joined, if you go back 13 years, it's 2008 I first played. I was actually player of the season in my first year, which was a real honour. But then as time went on, I was called into the England squad. Now, again, when I started, I didn't think that was even possible. I didn't even think it was a thing. I just thought that England teams were the men's, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, it was back then, running around. I didn't think, and then of course it opened my eyes to all these disability teams, which England now have. I think there's 21 teams under the England FA banner in total, for football, including the blind, the amputees, and also more recently the Powerchair. So I think it opened my eyes to a whole new world. But because before, up until I was 25, I used to work at the BBC. I had other jobs at working at Birmingham City Council. So I really wasn't involved in sport. I literally was just someone who went to football matches and watched it on the telly. So Paul has really changed that. And as I've got more experience playing the sport, I've really got interested in my coaching and kind of helping the younger players develop. I've always done a lot for disability. I used to do like public speaking for arthritis charities, which is a condition I've got. I've even spoken in the Houses of Parliament, like in front of MPs and stuff. That was a bit of a nerve-wracking experience. So I think things like that have helped me over the years. But I think Paul has given me the kind of key into football and disability football. And
Fantastic.
I think my absolute love for the game has just took off.
Fantastic, David. I mean, thinking about obviously what makes Powerchair football exciting to you and that feeling, what's it like playing for your club and your country, and watching possibly the next generation of players coming through now?
And it's a great feeling, like, the sport has changed over the years, since I first became involved, sort of 12, 13 years ago. We used to use chairs that are less responsive and more sort of medical day chairs, but now, as you've seen yourself, the chairs are specifically made for the sport, which actually make it far more fun to play because the chairs are so reactive. You've had a sitting one yourself, haven't you? And you nearly flipped backwards and did a gamble.
Thanks, Dave.
That's all right. So they're really responsive. So at its best, Powerchair football now is fast-paced, dynamic, and highly skillful. And I think it is largely thanks to the chairs, which have changed that. Only in the last 3 or 4 years, it did used to be a sort of dribbling and driving game. Before then, and there were people that did compare it to bumper cars because literally you'd have two chairs colliding with the bumpers, and it would resemble that. So I think it's I think it's an absolute pleasure to represent West Bromwich Albion. When I played for England, it was an absolute pleasure. It's probably the best moment in my career. When I've got my England cap like on the wall in the other room, you can't see it from here, but
I heard a story from Mr. Paul Hunt about you celebrating the goal. I think it was in Ireland, was it?
Where was it now? That wasn't Ireland. It would have been Paris.
Okay.
Because it was a Champions League for West Brom, and what was it? No, I tell you, it was Denmark. It was Denmark. Because it was the Champions League and I scored the goal in the semi-final. We went for penalties. It was 1-1, like in normal time, but I scored the one. And then I hit it so well. It's one of the best goals I've ever scored. I just hit it sweet. Kind of went off down the touchline. Do you remember Skilacci for Italy? Was it in one of the World Cups? And he was like, I was a bit like that. I didn't know what to do. And I ran down the touchline and went down the touchline in my chair. I didn't run anywhere. So I went to high five the coach, completely missed, and just sat the fans doing this. Yeah. Just wanted everyone to be there and just take their loss.
But that just shows, the pleasure people get from playing the sport, isn't it? Really, it's a sport that they've probably not been able to do for so many years, and always had that ambition to do, especially playing for your country.
I'll let you in on a secret. My dad has cried when he's watched me play Powerchair football. And he's not a very emotional man. And he cries over when Blues do something well. Do you know what I mean? When we won the trophy, so to my dad, it's up there. I must have done something good for him to cry in that way. Do you see what I mean? Because he has it. Because he's got that steely exterior. So I know that it's when you score that goal, it's a fantastic feeling. I suppose it's as good a feeling as Steven Gerrard just winning the league for Rangers, even though we're not paid. It's still an equal, that feeling. It's still the same for both of us. And no matter whatever happens, you can't take that away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thinking about obviously, and the future, and where we are now at the moment. Why is inclusion and diversity so important now? I mean, thinking from your sport, but also generalising inclusion sports around the country.
I think it's massive these days. Obviously, we've seen some pretty high-profile incidents happen, with the FA, where things have been said and the wrong language or terminology has been used. So I think it's far more than just about a policy and procedure these days. It's far more than just a head count. And I think you've actually, like, it's about people's behaviours, isn't it? And I think, like, the more diversity you can include, then the bigger range of, like, opinions, thoughts and ideas and skill set, I think you'll get, and I think it's important for people with disabilities to have a voice and opportunity. I mean, I've learned from the last, just the last few years, like alone being involved across football. I mean, I'm a league secretary. I'm also a club secretary. I'm a player. I'm a coach. There's loads of different roles involved within sort of disability sport and specifically football. That there's massive opportunities for people with disabilities. You don't always have to coach. You don't always have to play. You could be a team administrator and you get paid very well at some clubs, for like doing that. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's opened my eyes to the possibility of the different roles within a football club. And I think, specifically within football, there's a lot of opportunities for people with disabilities to get involved and to get like jobs and employment, and to also further themselves as well. But yeah, it's far more than policy and procedure these days. You have to look at people's behaviours, I think, and also try to change perceptions. I know hundreds of disabled people, and some don't work at all, and then some don't stop working. So I think it depends on your motivation as well, and I think you have to have that motivation. Luckily, I've always had that from a very early age, and I know Paul has too. We mentioned him a few times, but yeah.
Thanks, Dave. I'm going to pass over to Owen. Owen's got a few questions. Cool. It'll come back to me. So, Owen, over to you.
Hi, Owen.
Hi, Dave. Pleasure to speak to you. Inspirational, some of the things you've already told us and some of the things I've looked up online with you and your career. So it's great to speak to you. When we're running Birmingham school games and para school games, it's not unusual to have hundreds and thousands of SEND pupils across the spectrum taking part in school games, events and other competitions throughout Birmingham. You've mentioned, though, that you're really quite new, relatively speaking, to the game. What was it? Can you paint a picture of what it was like at school for you, in terms of taking part in sport or not?
I must be frank, there was very little opportunity for me. Of course, we're talking, I'm 38 now, so I left when I was 16, so you can sort of do the maths. It was in the 90s that I left. There wasn't the opportunities available. I mean, I already mentioned, but I think at the top of the interview that, I played a lot of table tennis in sports. So when everyone was outside running around, I would be indoors playing table tennis with maybe one other student who had a disability. In my earlier school days, I could walk a little bit, but what I used to do is sort of goal hang really and just kick it in when it come. I was leading scorer one year. I got 35 goals, but most of them were from about half a yard out, because I used to sit on the chair and then get up when it came near to me, and that was it. Honestly, that was it. That and table tennis. I tried playing on a huge grass pitch, but I just couldn't run or walk about for more than 5 minutes at a time. So it was really difficult. So again, my sporting experience was really watching it on the telly and actually going to football matches, and that was it. That was really it.
And as a young boy, how frustrating was that? Because obviously that's not an experience that all children will face nowadays, because there are exit routes into disabled and para sport. So how frustrating was that for you when you were a youngster?
It was very frustrating because, I was often kind of isolated from my friends and stuff as well at break times, because I couldn't really go outside and run about. So I just stayed in really a lot of the time, when they played football in the playgrounds, and also the game sessions, PE, we was in the sports hall. If we played cricket, then I'd be umpire. It's a bit of a naff job, isn't it? It's like finding me a job to do rather than including me within the sport. If you know what I mean. There is a big difference in kind of like, helping someone to compete or finding someone a role. When I was just umpire, that's just basically, you can do that. It's a bit sort of fobbing you off in a way. So no, there wasn't opportunities. Powerchair football was only existed in 2005, like in England. I wasn't able to play wheelchair basketball because I never had the upper body strength for all who use like a powered wheelchair. So no other sports really interested me. Wasn't really interested in bocce. I was introduced to that, but didn't really excite me in the way that football does. It's a very different sport, but I know a lot of Powerchair players do play boccia because of the lack of strength in their arms and the lack of availability of other sports that they can do. I often used to love fantasy football and cricket because, I used to go mad for them and used to do really well, to be fair, in competition because I couldn't play. So that was the next best thing, choosing a team, managing that. So and it sounds silly now, but of course the lack of opportunities, that's what it had to be back in the day. But Powerchair football, I've seen so many lives transformed, young people's lives. Honest to God, I don't wish my life away, but I wish I was 16 again because the opportunities some of these kids have got, and you've met them, Andy, some of them are absolutely phenomenal. The way, they're absolutely coming through thick and fast. I noticed I didn't really answer your question from the previous point about, the youngsters coming through. They're absolutely phenomenal. 16 to sort of 18, 19-year-olds are the core sort of players, make up about 25-30% of the playing population probably. And they've literally going to have the world at their, their fingertips, if you like, the way you control the chair. So, man, all the best to them,
Yeah. So I think we probably all agree. Yeah, we probably all agree, and you've emphasised, times have changed. We're probably still not there, definitely, in terms of full inclusion.
Definitely not.
There's a long way to go. Can you just outline for people watching this, perhaps with children at home who are in a wheelchair or have other physical disabilities, what's out there at the Albion that they can take part in, and what's across the city?
Okay, well, specifically at West Bromwich Albion, we've got the Powerchair football department, which is myself and Paul Hunt, basically. Extremely successful. We've got over 40 players, making it one of the largest sort of clubs in the country. I believe there's 45 Powerchair clubs up and down the country. We offer sessions for blind. We offer sessions for amputees. We offer sessions for pan disability, so like cerebral palsy. If you've got your whole body affected or maybe just one limb. I'm actually the league secretary of both the West Midlands Powerchair League and the San Inclusion League, which is a pan disability league. So we serve, between them two leagues, we serve over 500 players with a disability in the West Midlands. So I can safely say that I'm doing my bit to serve, people with disabilities in the West Midlands. And, take, for example, the West Midlands League, which we've got over 100 playing members. So we've got 19 teams. That's grown from 5 teams 7 years ago to 19 now. So you can see that growth, and that can double again in the next 7 years, providing we get COVID under, sort of under control. But yeah, the Albion is one of the best setups in the country. I can't knock it really. I think it's one of the top 5 foundations connected to like a mainstream football club. And the Albion deliver all those sessions that I mentioned. A lot of clubs don't do the Powerchair because it is very expensive to start. A chair can cost between 5 and 8 grand. So it's not, that's a very expensive pair of football boots. So you can imagine it's very difficult, and, it's slow to get a team started. But, the luxury Albion have got is they've got chairs people can have a go in. And I think, there's a limited amount of clubs that have got that all across the country.
And what age do you start at? Because I've got a couple of kids at my school who I think might be raring to go.
Yeah, well, the one thing about Powerchair is it's an open age. Now every season they have to apply. The governing body of the WFA have to apply for an age dispensation. But it's been, as I say, it's been going 16 years now, and it hasn't been rejected yet. It's because the players don't touch each other. The chairs make the contact. So it's actually an open age. So I've played in games where there's been like a 16-year-old, and I'm 38. You can have regional games where there's like a 12-year-old against an adult, but there's no physical contact. Okay. So it's open age and it's mixed gender, so it's for boys and girls. So I would say, I've coached players as young as 9, 10 in those new style strike force chairs, we call them. I've had a player because you just turn them down. And that's the beauty of those chairs. Whereas the older style chairs did often flip over, let's say, when there's a collision. But I haven't seen a tick in our sport for over 5 years now. So it's much safer than it used to be. But it sounds like your boys are ready, Owen. So just bring them to West Brom.
Yeah, we'll try and get them up. So Just finally, you said you obviously came to para football and chair football at a late age. I've noticed your career, Champions League, international honours, all of that, great coaching career. What would you say to a family out there that have got a child at home with a variety of physical disabilities, perhaps? What would you say to them in terms of them possibly following their dreams?
I would say you got to go for it. I mean, like when Paul asked me if I'd have said no, then I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today, because I wouldn't know Andy. I wouldn't be coaching at the QAC. So it's a strange how like the butterfly flaps its wings, if you like. I mean, I have learned to never say no to an opportunity, but there are times you have to because you might have too much on. But I think like don't be adverse to trying new things. And especially in this time when it's COVID, I know a lot of people are still skeptical, but I think you just have to say yes and try it. You get nowhere by trying things in life. So if your son or daughter likes football, that they're in like a wheelchair, or if they're like got another disability like a pan disability or blind amputee, there's many opportunities out there. So never believe that you can't do something. It's about what you can do and not what you can't.
Fantastic. Great to speak to you. Good luck with the future.
Thank you, Owen. Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, Owen. So Dave, moving on, obviously you mentioned the chairs and and looking at Powerchair football now. I mean, how fast can the chairs go nowadays? And and what's it like playing that type of game, especially at international level?
Yeah, the chairs go at 10 kilometres an hour, so that's 6.2 miles per hour. And before each National League game, so when we're playing the top level and international, you get speed tested to actually go on a roller. So if you actually go over that, you get another attempt to turn it down. So, so all chairs are fairly equal. What's more important in our sport is the acceleration of the chair. So it's not about the speed from A to B, because we play on a standard size basketball court. It's not about going from one goal to the other, because you very rarely do that. It's about the acceleration to get to that ball first, to intercept the ball maybe, or to actually get to that ball before your opponent. So that's more important. So you see a lot of the chairs, and when you had to go Andy, that's why it was so jerky, because it's probably on 100% maxed out acceleration. And the actual forward speed is probably on like 65, because you can't go above that or you fail the speed test. So it's more about the acceleration and the turning responsiveness, which the new style chairs bring an absolute joy, absolute joy to use. Everyone's got the same chair more or less. So it is about the playability.
Obviously, when you turn, especially going in for a shot, and when you spin that chair, that is some sort of, like, as you say, some velocity and acceleration in the chair, isn't there?
It is a force. When you kind of spin around at full power, you do feel your head wobble, and there are players that can't control their head movements as well, and they end up a bit, sort of contorted, with their head flopped over, and you have to stop the game. Carer comes on and sorts it out. But they want to play, and they're able to play football. And I think the new style chairs enable you to make passes you can see in your mind, whereas before we was in these like wooden style chairs, and you couldn't really get enough power on it to get it to where you wanted it to go. You saw your teammate, but you couldn't get the ball to him, So I think these chairs have really changed that. At international level, some of the control. We played against a player called Momo Galami. He was French, and all he does is dribble, but he's a bloody good dribbler. I mean, he makes Maradona look he was absolute rubbish. He just turn you inside out, going this way, that way. So he's the best ever player I come up against, kind of international level. But the absolute control of some of the top players, and I like to think I am a top player myself, playing for played for my country like 3 or 4 years ago now. But I think the actual control and to manipulate the chair and also keep your eye on the ball. I mean, some people, like, I've seen carers move chairs and they can't even make them go in a straight line. Do you know what I mean? And that's without the ball. So I think you have to take your hat off sometimes. And it is a sport you do have to see to kind of believe.
It is a kind of tactical sport, though, isn't it? I mean, you sort of, the drills that you do, and also, the way you go through the game plan, there's pinpoint passes and planned tactics, isn't there? I mean, you look at football, compared to football, to Powerchair football, the tactics in Powerchair are a lot more precise, aren't they?
go a lot more precise. You know, I mean, it's only 4 per side, but it's amazing what you can do with 4 players. Like, you know, the thing we've done at West Brom, I'll just tell you how it's evolved a little bit in the last few years. The thing we try to do at West Brom is play with 4 players. So it is a little bit like total football. We called it a bit like the Ajax from like years ago when, you know, Johan Cruyff, like, you know, invented the 3-4-3 and stuff like that. You know, so at Albion, we do encourage the use of the goalkeeper, 4th player. And I actually play in that position myself, but I don't stay in goal. So a lot of the time, it kind of works out 4 against 3 because they'll have a goalie who just sits on the line. And then the 4 players are outnumbering the 3 outfield players, if you like. You know, so in recent years, we like to think that we're trying to evolve the tactics even more. And it's down to the chairs. I'll come back to it. It's down to the chairs that have enabled us to kind of make passes that we can see in our minds. I mean, I can actually, you know, I can thump a ball as well as anyone. You know, on my good days, and you know, I've scored some spectacular goals, and that's where that adrenaline comes in. Because you hear it, you know, smacking against the post flips over, and you go, ah. You know, things like that, or the ball thuds, you know, you can hear it ping off the chairs, and I love that. I must admit, I love that.
Fantastic. I mean, thinking about your career, and obviously, you know, you've talked about the goal in Denmark. I mean, what is your fondest moment or achievement?
It's probably playing for England, although you know, I will admit I'm not, you know, I'm not proud enough to admit that. Probably didn't make the most of my England opportunity. I got so nervous, you know, I'm really nervous. Like even at camps, like I would overthink things and stuff. So I probably didn't make the most of it, but I still played 6 times. We come runners up to France in the 2015, I think it was, Nations Cup in Limerick. But, you know, French were an absolute class above us. We were quite a way behind the French, really. But a fantastic experience listening to the national anthem. I'm not normally one for the national anthem. I think it's a bit old-fashioned, but must admit, when I'm lining up waiting to play for England and I heard it, I must admit my heart started going. And, you know, man, I must admit other things started going as well because I was that nervous. My stomach was all over the shop. But I actually played in the semi-final. We won 5-1. I didn't actually play in the final. They dropped me. So we just won 5-1, dropping me. You know, so that was the last time I played the semi-final, unfortunately. So yeah, but you know, I know it's absolutely brilliant experience. Trained at St George's Park 10-11 times, Friday to Sunday. You know, I didn't think I'd do that when Paul came down and spoke to me and said, "Do you want to come to play Powerchair football?" The Champions League I mentioned, you know, phenomenal weeks. You create a real team bond. And I've made, you know, some of my best friends, like, you know, I've met through the sport. So, and I've been to uni, I've worked at the BBC, but some of my best friends I've made through Powerchair football, you know, because we've had that shared memory and we've been through experiences, you know, it's absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. Obviously, October is always supposed to be the World Cup for Powerchair.
I believe it's been moved back to 22.
All right, but okay, yes, so thinking about the Powerchair Football World Cup, and you know, and whether that goes ahead later on when it does, who do you see as the top 2 teams being in the final?
Well, I think it's going to be 2 of 3. It's going to be England. Obviously, I have to say England are the European champions from May 2019. Just get my years right, because I know we've all missed a year because of COVID. But yeah, 2019. So England will go in as one of the favourites. France, I think, are the team to beat. They won the World Cup last time. America, always dangerous, but they've probably slacked off a little bit the last sort of couple of years. So I'd go England, France final. And
fantastic.
Will
England win?
I think so. I think if they start how they finished against France, because they didn't start in the right manner, I don't think. And I think Chris and the guys will admit that, and John and stuff, they didn't start with that fallout mentality. They weren't set up right. But I mean, when as you know, they were 2-0 down and came back to draw 2-2 and then win on penalties. So phenomenal achievement, but I don't think they'd want to be 2 down again. I think they might as well just start how they finished.
Thinking of the future for you, Dave, and as you know, as a player and a coach, what's the next kind of move forward?
The next step forward for me, I've got an FA mentor, which, you know, the program has been suspended a little bit during like the COVID times, but I have got someone that I can lean on, a coach who's done his like level 3 and his way for B. So I do want to look at doing my kind of UEFA B and FA level 3 if possible, but that would involve me being linked to a mainstream team, 11v11. Now, I have mentioned that I'm involved with the women's setup. I'm not a coach, but I have got access to learn a lot and to be on the grass. And as I said, I'm an FA level 2 coach, so I've got that basic knowledge already, and I can coach kids up to a certain age who are mainstream. But I think I'd like to develop that. I would love an international power chair job. Honestly, I would love to, even if it was Ireland or Scotland, taking them to a World Cup. And I'm probably not ready for England. I ain't going to get that. Fair enough. But you have to have your UEFA B to get these jobs. Otherwise you can't get them. So that's where I'd look at the coaching for me. I mean, how easy is it going to be for me to do my FA level 3? And then if I'm trying to coach an 11v11 team, are they going to listen to me thinking, well, he can't coach us, he's in a wheelchair? So how it's interesting, that relationship. And I know guys who have done it in wheelchairs, and the players have took to him absolutely brilliantly. So I want to follow in their footsteps, really.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking obviously we're still going through the pandemic, and and obviously we're restrictions are starting to be eased, and as I said, shielding finishes tomorrow for many millions of people. The amazing key workers and people are still struggling at home. What would your message be to people now going forward?
I am a big believer in, I think before the pandemic we always wanted more, and I know in our sport, Powerchair, we're always saying, it'd be great if this sport was on the telly, and it'd be great if we could get an ambassador. But I think once it was all taken away, we kind of wish it was all back again. So I think it's, sort of don't be greedy, and sort of, be grateful for what you've got almost. Do you know what I mean? Because now it's all been took away. We really missed it, and I just want to train. Just, you know what I mean? I'll be grateful just to train. I don't want any matches yet. So once it's all took away, I think we all realise what we had was very special. And we've got to stop wanting more all the time. I know it's good to promote the sport, to get it on Sky, but some people just don't stop. Do you know what I mean? Just enjoy it, and, enjoy it for what it is. And I think people sometimes are more often in a rush to get away, and it's like, I think moving forward that might change because people have missed one another, and we just want to get back to it now.
Absolutely.
It's really important to actually do that.
Finally, Dave, before you go, we always finish with this kind of question. So if you could think of a quote, what would that quote be, and why, for motivation and inspiration?
I tried to think about this one because I spotted this question. The one that immediately springs to my mind, and I do use this one a lot, is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Now, I know we've lost a lot of friends, and that in the last 12 months I've lost friends myself, I've lost family members, but I do think this whole COVID thing will make those of us that are moving forward stronger. And I've used it a lot in my lifetime. I've had a lot of hospital stays when I was younger, missed loads of school. So I've always said it, I've always gone, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I do believe it. But I think confidence is massive for people. And that's just one word. I'm just going to say it, confidence. I never used to be confident, and I never achieved anything. Since I've been confident, I've achieved loads.
Fantastic. Dave Lewis, thank you so much.
Always. Thank you.
The Costas are on you next time we see each other.
Okay, that's fine.
And I'll buy the croissants, I promise. Stay safe.
As well. I need me haircut like you two, I must admit. Sorry about that.
Don't worry. Dave, it's a pleasure to speak to you, and hopefully I'll see you at QAC soon.
Hopefully.
But stay safe and take care. And thank you so much for doing the interview. It's been a pleasure. And Owen, get that to West Brom to play this game, because it's an amazing game, and we need more people to play inclusion sports. Guys, take care and stay safe.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Bye.
Stay safe.